Good afternoon. I'm Daniel Miller. And this is the Video Gaming News. A warm welcome to all of our friends, fans, community members, participants and everyone watching us on a variety of different platforms worldwide. Thank you for joining us and thank you for helping us with the channel and everything we do here, and that also includes our charitable fundraising. So thank you very much for that, for your letters, for your messages, for your follows, shares and likes. All of that's been greatly appreciated by myself and everyone who belongs to that Mind charity community, most importantly these service users. Today is a very special day, I have to say. We talk about mental health here quite a bit, and indeed everything we do here is connected with our support for those people in our communities who are a bit more vulnerable. But today we have the big release date of Hellblade 2, Senua's Saga, the sequel to the original game that was published about 6-7 years ago. And it's probably one of those, well, I should say, rephrase this. This is the game that portrays what mental illness is actually like. And anyone who had experienced any form of auditory or visual interference, which is called psychosis in jargon, would have known what this is like and how terrible and terrifying and awful that is every single day if one is living through it. And this game is really capturing this to a degree previously not seen in video gaming. Therefore, it did receive lots of rewards, and it has been given huge amount of praise from the critics and the gaming community alike. So today's a big day. We'll talk about Hellblade a bit more in a moment, and hopefully everybody, as I said to everyone yesterday and the day before, had preloaded the game, because it all kicked off around midday, and we were all able to step in and try the games immediately. You know, a not good idea to be waiting for that last minute, as everybody else is doing exactly the same at the moment when the game launches. So having a preload is really something that really helps, and highly recommended to everyone. And Microsoft and Xbox are really expanding on the ability for us to preload, inclusive of the updates, which is the latest inclusion to everything that we are getting through their streaming platforms and indeed their online services. So yeah, today, not a very good day out here in my local area. We've had a few days of sunshine, really warm weather, proper summery type of temperatures. And now we've gone back to storms and drizzle and rain, a usual kind of English weather that you get in this area. Not really during this time of the year. And I'm a bit surprised that we've gone back to a bit of a nippy, shivery, coldy type of atmospheric pressure. And I've got to say that it's been raining quite a lot ever since I woke up, which was quite late today. And, you know, not really excited about the prospect when I need to be going out and doing some shopping or anything else, because rain is very, very heavy, which means you get soaked in no time. But hey, whenever you have the weather, which is giving you a lot of snow, a lot of rain, drizzle, shivering cold winds, gale force winds, whatever, that's the best time to be basically jumping on your console and playing some of the best games, right? And today is a day where we are being really thoroughly spoiled. We have Hellblade, and we also have the XDefiant, which Ubisoft is releasing, a free-to-play PvP game. Really funny that these two games coincided on the same, and they couldn't have been more different. You know, PvP of Ubisoft is very much like all the other games we've done, Battle Royale and battling all the other human enemies. And Hellblade is a single-player game where you are experiencing the lead character through her distressing journey, through which she is first of all finding herself, and then secondly defeating her demons on the inside as well as the external enemies. Okay, so I'll tell you a bit more about this in a moment, but how's that pertain today? What are you doing? Have you preloaded? Are you going to be doing Hellblade? Are you at all interested in the game and the title? We talked about it quite a bit here, and you know, it's no wonder, as this channel is linked to what we call a quest for mental health. We fight for mental health, and charitable fundraising and everything else we do, really with live online gaming, supporting other gamers who experience difficulties. And it's great to see that such things coincide, our sessions here live on air together with such wonderful title being released. So, are you going to be playing Hellblade? Are you doing anything else? I always begin my news with some vignettes on what I have been doing elsewhere, meaning what games I've played on a variety of different platforms. Presently, I'm not doing anything much on my PC. I've got to admit, most of my gaming activity is either on Xbox or indeed on my new PlayStation, and I'm thoroughly enjoying both of my consoles. They provide me with a multitude of titles, multitude of activities through their streaming platforms, and I have to say, I bought quite a few games after I played them through their streaming services, but we're just spoiled for choice. There are too many things to try and many good titles coming out. Yesterday I've given you a rundown on all the titles that are coming to Xbox. It's just mind-boggling. There's about 20 or 30 titles coming our way within the next couple of weeks, and then we also heard about PlayStation introducing 10 new titles to their streaming platform. Unfortunately, they're also taking down 34, which probably is the greatest number they've taken down altogether ever since they kicked off with the PlayStation Now services quite a few years back. And I'm very surprised that that is happening, but I believe that the reason for that is the current malaise in the industry and a huge worry that publishers have about not being able to make revenue and falling behind and having all of the kinds of difficulties. So, we've seen these major layoffs, studios closing down, and many people departing from various companies that produced absolutely terrific titles, and that's part and parcel of it. I'm really gutted to see that only a few days after we've heard from the senior executive of Square Enix that they're going to be restructuring very seriously the way they operate, we have, I think it was about 9 or 10 games of Final Fantasy series, which indeed are being taken down from PlayStation. And as you know, Final Fantasy has been there right from the start. So really annoying, as I downloaded a number of those titles, which I want to play on my PlayStation 5. I wanted to experience them, in 4K and really with the best possible frame rate, with beautiful illuminated images, colors, you name it. And that is going to be taken away from me. And they're all gone today. 21st is the day where 34 games are disappearing. So, they probably are going to be changing the system one way or the other. As we've seen and heard, Microsoft and Sony are more, they're sort of reaching a stage to which they are going to be cooperating, sharing certain titles, doing things together, and perhaps introducing the new system that will make the vast majority of titles accessible on all platforms without any proprietary exclusives, which is what the industry was doing now for quite a few years, almost from the beginning. And it's the new tech, the new era. We need to see how all of that is to unravel. But at the moment, I think we are spoiled for choice. And just generally remember, when you have new inclusions on any of these streaming platforms, just make sure that you try them all. And you have to play all the games, but just try them. Make sure you are displaying that degree of interest. The interest for these games is critical. Because the publishers are monitoring how many downloads, client access points, or indeed likes and follows are being observed, and it's extremely important for every one of the titles that is included on Game Pass and PlayStation Plus. But I think most importantly for the indie titles, as they do not have a huge marketing budget and they're always struggling, with the publicity and the means of which they attract new customers. Being on that platform, or one of those two platforms, is giving them huge publicity. And as we've seen, quirky little games that otherwise would have been completely ignored or never heard of are getting many players and indeed are being played, perhaps not vociferously, but at the end of the day, there are people paying attention to that title, and they'll remember something about the game. They'll remember about the a few things about the developer and publisher. So there are definitely great positives about such titles being included on such platforms. I think I worry a bit that Xbox is getting cold feet about the titles are not doing too well on the streaming platform, and I've seen and heard that there's this rumor that the next Call of Duty will be released on Xbox Game Pass day one. That's not been confirmed, but we'll have to see whether that is the case, and we need to see whether this will work financially for the company compared to what we've seen in the past, as some games did very well financially after being released on day one, and another title suffered. I do not want to see either the disappearance of these platforms or any form of major change, which would mean restricting the number of titles and not having the same quantity of games on offer, and just, I guess, restricting that variety that is presently available, because it's really good. Some days I really feel and fancy like playing AAA blockbuster title. At the moment, I'm playing Tomb Raider the Definitive Edition, coming towards the end of the game, and I have to say I'm really enjoying it. It's a wonderful, wonderful action adventure game, and really love everything about it. There are some very difficult puzzles in there, and you will have some serious hurdles as you get into the game. You will need to work out, first of all, what to do, and then secondly on how to do it, as she is an expert jumper and climber, and if your skills related to jumping and climbing are not up to scratch, you will be struggling. And I've just yesterday had to hit a hurdle towards the end of the game where you have to be erecting a kind of a cage, which is otherwise housed underground. I need to lift it up to the ceiling, then close the shutters, which are down below, and then you need to swing the cage, jump on it, and from it you need to jump to another platform. That's so difficult, because every time you're jumping, something happens, and therefore you're not able to hook up with the desired destination. It's just got me so annoyed, and I played it for quite a bit, quite late, in fact, at night, and that was the reason as to why I got a bit late today. It just didn't seem to work. I've used all the techniques that I have under my belt, and it didn't work. And that is, I guess, one of those delightful little things which you will come across in the game. Even if you're playing it on a story mode or, one of the easy options, there are going to be parts that will require extra skill, and you will not be just able to walk through it. So that's really quite good. I really like the idea, and I really like also the game overall. Part of that trilogy. So I didn't say after playing this one, I'll definitely jump on the second one and the third one, make sure I'm a full member of that Survivor Trilogy Club. And several people recommended the game to me a little while back, but the way things are, you always have another title there, and I really wanted to kind of play them in succession, and this is exactly what's happening at the moment. I just asked myself a question, but why on earth was I waiting for so long? The game was released in 2013. I purchased it a couple of years later and had it both on my Xbox and on PlayStation. Never played the game. And the beauty of having the same game on both platforms is that, for instance, you can try it out on the story mode, and then you play it on Xbox, and then later you migrate to PlayStation, play it on one of the harder levels, and compare. And then you can jump back in and do it, on the hardest difficulty level on Xbox, and then do something else on PlayStation. So it gives you that capacity to replay, which I think is really good. But I think in no time, in a few years, we'll have cross-platform access for the vast majority of the titles. It's monetary, it is just the finance that's basically guiding these corporations towards that. They're unwillingly embracing this, and in the same way as the exhibitors and the distributors in the 1930s were not keen on the idea that they would not be the sole owners of the theatres, because I think for the members of our younger generation, you're not familiar. What I did have with that's the greatest development of film industry took place in the early 1930s. In the US, the big studios like Warner Brothers, MGM, RKO, etc., they owned their cinemas, and the films which are produced were screened just in those cinemas. Sometimes they would allow certain titles to be screened in other cinemas, but they would have to have a special arrangement and special agreement, and therefore there would be obviously a lot of monetary, financial interest in that sort of exchange, or I should say in that type of allowance that was given to the other exhibitor to take up some of the titles. And so there was a complete monopoly. The companies like MGM, Warner Brothers, they were, first of all, having huge studios. They had very many people at the bankroll, and they had contracts which be lasting 7 years. So anyone who signed a contract was not allowed to be in any other films produced by the competitor studio. They could be on a loan, so in a similar way to what you see today with footballers, right? And therefore they could emerge, and then every single film in which they featured would have to have that labeled on the credits. So it would say on the loan from that studio. It's just really bizarre. But that's the way things were. In any case, they had a complete monopoly. And after about 12, 13 years, this was seen as pretty detrimental for the further development of the industries, which at that time was thriving. And therefore, the US government, the federal government, introduced a new law which was separating distribution from production and from all the other aspects of an exhibition, which is very important. And therefore, you'd had the cinemas being sold off to other companies, no longer owned by the studios. And they were able to produce the films and then in some cases even distribute, but the distributors were again another lot of companies that became eventually their subsidiaries or completely independent, and therefore they were embracing the product and then distributing it and then giving it to the exhibitors. Do you see what I mean? So you had suddenly from one big industry, 3 separate branches operating, up and running and creating further revenue. Why am I telling you this? Well, the same thing's happening in the video game industry at the moment. You have this massive, huge monopoly that the companies like Sony and Microsoft at the moment are holding. And this is not particularly good for the industry. You know, if you look at it, both companies had purchased and acquired quite a lot of different studios. And these studios are in an environment which is incredibly stressfully, highly competitive, requiring to meet certain financial targets. And irrespective of the quality of the games, irrespective of the critical acclaim, if they're not making certain revenues, then, you know, their existence will be under a serious threat. Don't forget, the big company, Microsoft, after they purchase the studio, they will be investing a huge amount into that studio for everything to be up to scratch. We talked about Ninja Theory, the studio that produced Hellblade, in the course of this week, and it's just fantastic. It's just absolutely amazing, and, you know, state of the art in every way. So I don't understand why there's been this rumor spread around that their studio, Ninja Theory, is the next one in the line of many that will be closed. What for? Why? There's been no indication whatsoever that anything's gone wrong with that studio. I don't understand it. It's just really ridiculous when you see some of those hubs spreading that type of negativity and almost like willfully, intentionally wants to make a scandal or controversy in order to have some new readers or followers. It's just ridiculous. You have got to be. You remember many times here, I've told you, I'm not going to be telling you anything which is based on a rumor. I'll tell you everything which is coming from in the know. That means based on the fact. For the same reason. Because all of those rumors, they can come up and they can very seriously affect the way certain projects are developing. They can cause closures of studios and indeed closures of certain titles, which sometimes have been in production for quite some time. In my personal view, a lot of that comes from the competitors. It's still possible to rig social networks quite sizably with bots and various other means and ways to which some tools are used in order to produce fake accounts. And, you know, it's just unbelievable. And for instance, I'll give you an example. I was astonished today, I have to say. I watched the presentation of Ubisoft the other day for the new Assassin's Creed series. And Assassin's Creed series is fantastic. It's just like it really provides you with a multitude of different ways to which you can approach the game. And they really wanted, certainly during the last few years with the latest titles, to give you this option whether you really want to resort to the, I guess, the signature, which they were famous for. Splinter Cell type of approach, very stealthy, very quiet, sneaky beaky. You don't really want to attack your enemies, you want to hide. So the entire activity is based on you staying in the shadows and attacking enemy from behind and, you know, doing it stealthily. And then giving you the option where you can come in with guns blazing. And they've tried it a bit with Valhalla and with Odyssey, and I think it worked to a certain degree, but they felt, and certainly from the feedback that was coming from the community, that some gamers were a bit apprehensive. They were not feeling at home with either or, and particularly as both of these were incorporated within one gameplay, like one character, one style. And you've seen, for instance, in Valhalla with Eivor, you could approach enemies sneakily, but at times you couldn't. At times you really had to be engaged them head on because they spotted you or there was some other reason in the situation that required your instant engagement. And so obviously they've taken it further and they've gone back to the concept introduced in Syndicate a few years back. And now they're giving you the option that you can play 2 different characters. One is a warrior, the other one is a samurai. They're both of different ethnicities. One is of Afro-Caribbean descent, the other is of Asian heritage. And at any time in the game, you can swing from one to the other. One is stealthy, the other one, from what I understand, is more sort of head-on. And I thought this was incredible. I watched trailers. The trailers were like really mouth-watering. They're just terrific. They really wanted me. They really almost made me buy the game preload straight away. Maybe 6 months before the game's released in November. Today, I've seen at least 20 reports in the mainstream press from the video game industry indicating that the game is going to be basically like a huge bomb. That they had more negative reviews, dislikes, thumbs down, and negative feedback on various platforms than the positive ones. Well, hang on a minute. Why? I don't understand it. I don't get it. Everything in what we've seen was great. So, is that down to the prejudice? Is it because the two characters are different ethnicities? Or is it because people don't like the idea? You have two characters you can swing from. Well, what's the reason for that? What was wrong with you being offered these two options? If you don't like the concept, play just one character. Don't play the other character. Like in Mass Effect, you have the whole crew to select from. You can just resort to two people. You'll be with them all the time. Other crew members will still getting some brownie points, but you don't have to play them if you don't like them. That sort of option is guaranteeing replayability, and we understand that people in our gaming community can be very picky and maybe very particular, especially if you're looking at the franchise or the series that's been around for a very long time. And everyone's very sensitive when it comes to any form of major change in terms of the actual gameplay. So, if you had Splinter Cell and then suddenly a remake where you don't have to do anything sneakily, just come in with heavy artillery, destroy everyone. Well, that's not it. But people like to stick to their own style of gaming, to their own ideas, and to the way they experience characters. But at the same time, there has got to be some form of development. Assassin's Creed goes through history. And every one of these games in recent years has been almost like an encyclopedia of history. It's educational. You learn about those countries, about the history. The characters emerging in Shadows, one of them, is a historic figure. So he's actually an authentic figure, taken out of the books and molded into the concept of the game. And at the end of the day, everything seems fine. I mean, I'm not saying that somebody will just simply say, dislike the idea. I don't understand for the life of me as to why somebody can be so ferocious about what has been released. What we've seen so far is really mouth-watering. It's really, really interesting. And the concept's interesting. At the end of the day, if you don't like the idea, then you simply stay away from the game, do something else. But it just looked like, from these comments and views, and particularly from the reports in the mainstream press, that it's all coming from the veterans, that the people who are your dedicated Assassin's Creed fans just completely hate the idea and they will not buy the game. Yet, when you looked at the preload and purchases, they're skyrocketing. So, it's a funny old game. I think anyone who's been involved with financial markets or the finance side of things, particularly where the markets work, so-called speculative markets, right? The speculators. Do you actually know what the speculators are? Because it's a nasty word, speculator. Somebody who's like really unpleasant, hits you below the belt, and that these are the auspices that such word has. But actually, speculators, in terms of trading, just the jargon, similar to what you would have had in medicine or science, with certain words which sound unpleasant, is a person who's offering a bidder. So somebody who is presenting you with how much he's wanting to pay for a certain product. Can be commodities, can be currency, can be natural resources, can anything, options, shares, you name it. You're offering that amount, and therefore you are prepared to pay, let's say, that amount, and that's your ceiling, meaning you're not prepared to pay any more. And then another person comes in and he offers a bit more, like a few pence more, a few dollars more. And then the third person, so 3 or 4 of them are speculating on what the final price is going to be. Therefore, they're called speculators, right? So you see, these people are very important for this industry, and that's video game industry, as they are really the main group of financiers that makes it possible for the games like Starfield, Mass Effect, and Halo to be made, or Destiny. These games require huge capital outlay. They're extremely expensive, and they will take anything between 2, 3 to 10 years to be made. So, if somebody investing in a product is very anxious that the money needs to be coming back one way or the other, and has some sort of guarantee that the product is going to be successful, because if you're looking at a period of 5-6 years, there'll be all kinds of threats and liabilities, and the tech's developing, new titles come in, you name it, And so at the end of the day, I can understand that people investing in such games, the games are expensive, they cost anything from $100 to $500 million. So think about it, a game that costs $500 million, it's unbelievable amount of money. When you compare that with personal budgets or, standard kind of government-based investments. And that comes from private sources. Somebody's invested that revenue in order to have some sort of guaranteed return. Therefore, the competition, as the industry is growing, had become so unpleasant, so, I wouldn't say ugly, but a bit below the belt, and have seen several titles of that magnitude, AAA blockbusters coming out of big companies. You had Starfield, you had Fallout, you had The Last of Us, for instance, the Sony exclusive, and then there was so much negativity thrown about. It's just unbelievable. And the bottom line was, just make sure you ruin the launch. And somebody is willfully doing this. It's not coming from gaming community. I mean, I'm saying that there may be some begrudged gamers, but they don't have the same muscle. They have like 20, 30,000 dislikes at once. And that is certainly raising eyebrows. And we have seen that across the board. Just not just in video game industries. We've seen that in music and film. We've seen that in politics, which is obviously having much greater implications for everyday living. We've seen that in various industries. Eventually, humanity will have to come to senses. We'll need to introduce certain rules, certain laws, certain restrictions, regulations to prevent that kind of skullduggery. And to see that the studios like Ninja Theory, the studio produced such a wonderful game that we played already for quite a few years, and also has this brand new title coming out today, namely Hellblade 2: Senua's Saga. There's just a rumor that they are the next one to be closed out. Why? I mean, where are you getting the ideas from? Just because the studios were closed there in Japan, it's got no bearing on a studio that Microsoft owns in Cambridge, in Britain. There may be reasons that are not known to the public. Do you see what I mean? Because people are just speculating and coming up with solutions which are just, the game didn't make any profit, but it doesn't have to be the case. It could be that there are problems within the company. It could be that, they're bleeding capital, that certain things are not functioning, either financially or within their human resources. And we've seen companies that, after some disagreements with the bosses, they had the whole leadership depart. And how is a company going to work without the leadership being fully in place, especially if you have huge revenues invested in everything from human resources to technology to development? So I'm not trying to be devil's advocate, and I'm not at all approving that many cuts and redundancies in industry. That's altogether horrifying for everyone. People have their families and livelihoods, which then are seriously threatened. But we have got to be a bit more, we need to be broader minded. We need to consider all the other factors. And I think that is very, very important if we are to be coming to some sort of serious logical conclusions as to why these things are happening. And overall prices of living, the cost of living, they've gone up and up. And that is basically what is causing problems across the board for everyone. People who are without any revenue to the trillion-dollar corporations, everything is costly for them. I've just seen today that they want to be increasing now the cost of water supplies in Britain between 24 to 90%. Just completely insane. People need water to live, so you're going to be increasing the bills by 50-60% overnight. It's just mad. So you could see how these types of problems are present across the board in various industries, and they're affecting literally every single participant in exactly the same fashion, which means you are threatened. And we need to really put this into perspective. Okay, I've given you just a bit of a an idea of what's happening out there, I have to say, really shocked by the number of negative thoughts about Assassin's Creed Shadows. I was delighted. I thoroughly enjoyed all I've seen, and really enjoyed the idea of the new concept. Really enjoyed the last 3 additions to the series, and these were namely Valhalla, Odyssey, and what's the other one called? The one in Egypt. It's just blanked out. Anyway, you know the one I mean. So basically, I just really not happy to see that degree of negativity floating about, as we, with our programming here, with my channel, and obviously with my community, we always want to be providing a degree of hope, you know, something that people want to look forward to, the reason to get up in the morning, to do different things, to be upbeat, to be forward thinking, to be always connected with something which is good, and bringing some humanity to others who are suffering, bringing some kindness, something humble, something noble to other people's lives. And what I see in these forums is everything opposite, and therefore it's always the best just to switch it off or not read it. But obviously, as I'm presenting you with the news, I've got to be in touch with what's going on there, and the overwhelming quantity of that, it's like a huge cloud, you know, falling upon us, and it's just being ascending from week to week, from month to month, and it's based on fear. People are afraid. It's unpredictable future. Massive big wars blazing out there without any resolution in sight. Threatening wars. Many people are dying every single day, and you know, economic crisis in every developed country. We've come to a stage where economies are not functioning. Some people don't want to accept this. They keep coming with the ideas that we are, you know, progressing out of recession and expect the standards. It's just a nonsense. We've gone into a mud. We're caked up in it, and we are not able to get up and do whatever is necessary to pick up the pieces. And every single citizen and every single business is affected by this. Whether people want to accept this and then take certain considerations and make sure that we move forward is something else. But at the moment, we're just listening to the stories which are preposterous and not really based on fact. Right, so what games am I playing at the moment? I've got to say, I've had no time today to play Hellblade 2, which I preloaded. It's fully installed on my Xbox, and I will be doing it indeed tonight. Very excited, very curious to see what the graphics are like, what the overall immersive experience is going to be for me. And I watched several documentaries and several podcasts dedicated to the making of the game. Highly recommended this to everyone. One of the biggest, or the best ones, was the one completed and produced by Xbox team. The other day, last week's podcast was entirely dedicated to Senua, and they've gone to Iceland to explore the locations at which the game is based, and it's just quite an extraordinary journey. You realise that there was so much work put into recreation of that locality that perfectly blends with a disturbed mind, because the earth out there in Iceland is disturbed, you know. Yeah, volcanic activity at all times, with sulfuric steam coming out of the center of the earth, and you have this sort of funny smelling clouds embracing you at all times, as well as the landscape that looks barren to a degree and then threatening if you are to be kind of doing some trekking or enjoying a nice sunny day. You always feel that something is out there to get you, and that's exactly how Senua feels. So it couldn't have been a better merger of the two. And also they spent, well, half the podcast was spent on the discussion with the team, and they really kind of presented it beautifully. They unpicked the story and the origins of the lead character and explained as to why they were doing it in such way and what the difference was between the first game and a sequel. So really there couldn't have been more excitement about a game compared to what I felt during the last week. So very, very excited. I've not played it yet. It was released at midday today in Britain, so it's been around for a few hours. It's about, 6 hours, and I've seen that about 7,000 or 8,000 people are watching it through Twitch. So that's quite a few people, maybe even a few more streamers since I've looked it up, which was 3 hours ago. And don't forget, lots of people come back home after 5 o'clock, and then many more gamers will join forces and watch. watching games on Twitch is not about, how do I, it's almost like entering a major social network, and you become an active participant when you talk to others and discuss various things, many of which may or may not be that specific game related. It's not only about watching what this game is about. I think I want to clearly define the difference, and one of the reasons why people much prefer coming to somebody's session live than just watching it on a playback is because they can make a direct contact. They can talk to everyone or anyone who's out there. So when you get to some of the bigger streamers have like 6,000-7,000 people watching the activity, you always find a few dozen who are constantly talking. It's not going to be 10,000 people talking at the same time, and the rest of the crew will be just watching, listening, and then they'll come in at some other time. But it's that immediacy of that communication which is so essential. And I think what I've observed is that for the single player games, you will have fewer viewers, and those people are a lot more dedicated to that particular title and the activity which is game related. With PvP games and the overall activity, it's quite a mixture, and you will have many people come in order to exchange the views on that title, but also on other PvP games, and also make new friends and connect. Yeah, because it is live, you are competing against other people out there who are in the same arena, and equally you have the live participants through chat forums, or like what you have here with my channel. I bring in up to 3 or 6 people to talk live on air, and sometimes they talk even if they're not playing the game with me in our party, and at other times they're just providing comments on, you know, whatever is going on for them. So it's a live activity, and I think that is critical, and that's drawing a lot more interest from those people who want to be actively participating, because it's about immediacy, you know, and also it's, I guess, dealing with our fantasy world, to which we feel that we make this immediate contact. Could be anyone, could be somebody who's completely anonymous and unknown, could be somebody very famous, and you know, people like chatting, like talking, like sharing views. People like being full members of a community that is very live, active, communicative, and you know, full of good ideas on what they can be doing with their own lives, what kind of games they could play, and generally a community that will support and share different ideas. So that is the bottom line, and I could see that lots of people are playing Senua today, which is very encouraging. It's not like in hundreds of thousands for the streams, but don't forget, for these single player games there are quite a few people who will not stream it, but they'll just, you know, get on a console and try the game for themselves first, and they'll come to Twitch a bit later. So it looks all very positive and very good. I'm still playing Tomb Raider Definitive Edition. As I said, I'm coming towards the end of the game. It's a fairly big game, and you are exploring all those tunnels and caves and very threatening areas of this Japanese island, I must admit, but they beautifully incorporate the history of the island and legends into the story, with action and the activities which are linked to Lara Croft, the protagonist, and everything in the game is just tipped up. And it's a remastered version. It looks really properly next gen. The sound and visuals are out of this world. Highly recommended to everyone. Otherwise, I've not tried any of the games yesterday and the day before. I wanted to play Starfield, and I wanted to see what the new update would have done to the game. I spent about 140 hours so far on the title. I mean, I love the game. I think it's really a classic Bethesda in all sorts of ways, but there were areas that were causing me certain concern, and I did not like the planets where there was very little to do, and where my equipment didn't seem to detect the area which was targeted as the main one for my quest. So, you know, in Starfield, I had to be walking. You probably know that during the first 6 months, you have to be picking up some sort of radio wave, and then your controller should be shaking when you're coming close to the destination, and you should hear the noise that's coming from the destination, and that definitely was not working properly for me on my Xbox Series S, and I had serious difficulties in trying to find certain areas, and then that just becomes like a lengthy, unnecessary grind, which is highly frustrating. Also, on many planets there weren't that many enemies to tackle, so it felt pedestrian. You tackle a few enemies, and some of the enemies were not that difficult to wrestle with, and so the landscapes were barren of that activity, and I think that for me was a concern. You really want to have a meaningful visit to any of the planets, and that itself didn't seem to work initially. Maybe quite different today. One of the biggest introductions was a reworked map. It's much easier to find certain places, and that's very good, because that indeed, well, they didn't want the detailed map initially, as they thought the explorative aspects of the game would be good enough, and they indeed were on certain planets. You were able to find everything, and you were able to engage with lots of enemies, and NPCs talk about different parts of the narrative and get led through whatever the story is. But then there were quite a few other places where you had nothing to do, and I think for anyone who's been in Oblivion or Skyrim, this would be of a very, very serious concern. I told you about Chants of Sennaar, a game I recommended. It's a very strange game through which you need to be learning different languages in order to communicate to some of the characters, and then deciphering some messages and get to know more about the legends and myths, as well as evade enemies and have a bit of puzzles. And for me, it felt like going back to David Warr Griffith's Intolerance. Not sure what you see in the Griffith's masterpiece from 1916. It's a film that tackles 4 different eras of history, and they're all kind of interconnected. And you have jump cuts and parallel editing through which you are flying and traveling through time and different events, and you are exploring those situations and the way humanity or the humans would tackle something that was seen as an imminent threat. And that game reminds me of this, because it's like entering the Tower of Babel. It doesn't have 4 different timelines, but it looks sort of archaeological from the outset, and visually it reminded me of Moebius. Moebius, the European illustrator and comic strip artist. He created great novels, graphic novels, and I loved his designs. But I've seen several games, I have to say, coming from France and Netherlands in recent times. One or two during the ID at Xbox recently as well. They're really blended with that image. I'm so glad to see. It's like a major breakthrough. It's a dedication to this fantastic graphic novelist, and I just hope that other people will embrace the idea and have the same sort of approach to new stories and new characters. As I always felt that the world of graphic novels and comic strips was indeed a very fertile ground through which video gaming was initially created. I always felt that playing video games for me was like coming into a graphic novel and then entertaining myself with different characters, entering the story, becoming a participant, and even more so today than maybe 20-30 years ago, where the tech was not as well developed. So, the games like Anthem or Horizon Zero Dawn or The Last of Us or Starfield are very much like a graphic novel, and you are walking through the wild, you're meeting different characters, you're exploring the story, and you're being given certain tasks, and it's just a wonderful type of experience for anyone who would have grown up on comic strips. I've got to say that I feel that the graphic novels, they're extremely expensive, but I'm not sure, but in Britain I feel that they're not as popular as they used to be. That's just my amongst the youth. You have very dedicated old veterans who are collecting them in a book format, and like strip albums and that sort of thing. But and I've seen in my local library they have a whole section, there's a whole big shelf full of beautiful graphic novels of all sorts. They include also some European ones as well as the US, and some of the old British Commando style series, and you name it. But I think generally, I felt, I might be mistaken, correct me if, obviously if you belong to our younger generation of British comic strip fans or graphic novel collectors, then tell me what the situation is. I just feel that interest, that drive to wait for the new issue to come to your newsagent has gone. And maybe it's to do with instant access on the internet. I'm not sure, hard to tell, worth exploring further. But really glad to see that there are game developers that are dedicating the visuals of the game to be aligned with somebody who we knew from the graphic novels, and that's Moebius. And you can just, put Moebius on Wikipedia or on the Google. You get all the graphic novels and all the wonderful works that he had completed, and just really In Britain, we are very much generally biased towards the US markets of the graphic novels, but I think if you go to the continent, you go to France, go to Netherlands or Belgium, the countries that are seen as the original creators of some of the very best graphic novels and comic strips, you will realize that over there, the illustrated works published in that format are seen as art. And in Belgium in particular, Netherlands, they classify comic strips as an art form. And you come to certain shops which are dedicated to the artists and the titles, and it's just extraordinary type of experience. Like you would come in a museum. There's a lot more attention given to the seriousness of the whole process to which such graphic novels are produced. And I really, you know, I don't understand, in fact, as to why we have always been belittling and ignoring that type of artistic expression. In Britain, it was always seen as pulp, like, you know, stimulating violence and eroticism and bad things, and it was seen as something that people should not be engaging with at all. And what's happening with, you know, TikToks and Instagrams and Facebooks of this world? I mean, why isn't there enough attention given to the positive and the negative vibes that such forums are given to people? What I'm trying to say is it was unnecessarily scrutinized and very harshly, therefore never came to prominence. And I have seen several British illustrators who featured much better in France, Belgium and Netherlands than here domestically. And I was very sorry to see that. I mean, Don Lawrence might probably he is my favorite illustrator of all times, and he created Storm, Dragon Empire and Carl the Viking, 3 series which I absolutely adore. He had much greater success in Europe, you know. In his later years he worked for companies based in Belgium and Netherlands and created this fantastic visual fairy tales which are like, every frame is like a painting in itself, and he drew like that. He drew them a bit like as if he was painting on canvas, and therefore he is quite unique and really requires a lot more credit and a lot more recognition in Britain compared to what he had received. It was very difficult to get his original novels to be published in a book format, and it was all down to his family and people who loved him and his works that eventually got released. But in Europe, I've seen them in Belgium and France and other countries. You know, it's just very easy to get. And he's hailed as one of the greatest illustrators who worked in graphic novels of all times. And in Netherlands in particular, after he worked for, I can't remember, it's actually the Nimbler Company, and produced that series Storm. That's very similar to Dragon Empire. The characters look alike, and he had a specific signature style. If you've seen anything that he created, you would have been very familiar with very colourful, very engaging images that he had been producing and creating for entertainment. So, right, so these are the games I've played. So for me, the ones I'm going to be playing next, and I think some of our friends are asking about this, number 1 is Senua's Saga Hellblade. I'll play it tonight. I need to finish Tomb Raider. Then I have Immortals of Avium. I talked about this game quite a bit here. I was amazed by its promotional material last year, and I'm so sorry and so sad to see that the game didn't really deliver. I want to see for myself what the main problems were, some of which, as I read many articles, appear to be of the technical nature, and there was some that I guess people were not particularly enthused about the way the story was merging with the action. But you know, I need to try it, and I've had a look at it the other day on Cloud, and it looked very good. Initially reminded me of Dishonored, the actual opening of the title, and then again that's another bigger title that is on my list. Plus I have Evil West, I have Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, I need to finish Koina, The Rewinder, Have a Nice Death, Little Kitty Big Cities, it's smaller titles, and also Broken Age, Tim Schafer's game, which is really truly delightful, very recommending, very greatly. I want to recommend it to everyone, and Broken Age is one of those you need to be playing and enjoying every bit as you go along. Right, so what are we going to be talking about today? Well, first of all, we need to be looking at what's happening with Hellblade and its release. And I have prepared here some articles and some information for you. And then we'll also discuss what's happening in Destiny. We had This Week in Destiny delivered over the weekend. I'm not sure why it's coming so late. I would always expect, and I think in the past we were getting that information already on Tuesday with the reset, but I'm getting it like on Thursday and Friday, so therefore it's the weekend, and I can only present at the beginning of next week, and guess what, on Tuesday week, like today, we're going to have another reset. Nevertheless, I'm quite glad to see that the guys at Bungie are very busy, and that they are working very hard on the final shape and all that has come together with it. All good. And we are getting the novelties in bits and pieces every single week. Doesn't matter. As it gets delayed, what's important is it's full of substance, and it's giving us a very good pointer on what we are going to be seeing and doing in the days, months and years to follow. So, right, so let's just have a look at Hellblade first. As you know, the game's been released today. That's the sequel, Senua's Saga, at midday. Told everyone to preload, everyone who's on Xbox, in order to crack on, either midday or during, at some point, and then send us some feedback. I talked a lot about the game in my last 3 podcasts in here. I think I just want to highlight what the reason for that is. You've seen that I've given it a lot more attention compared to some other titles. I mean, first of all, this is a game that is tackling mental illness, and the lead character is seriously ill. She suffers from schizoaffective psychosis. This is basically a form of illness where a part of you on the inside is split off from the other side, and you are seeing a side of you as this was an external force. And that external force is communicating to you continuously through a variety of different voices, as is the case in the game, or with some people in real life, could be a thought interference through which people feel that their thoughts are being attacked. So it's not like a voice, but it's bad thoughts and negativity and the conclusions which appear to be abnormal. And some people will know that their thoughts are not really what they usually like. And then you have the third lot of interferences which are based on visual hallucinations, where people see like a film unraveling. At the front of them, and that's not real at all. So Senua belongs to the first category, somebody who's suffering from auditory hallucinations, and she had been having them from the very early stages of her life. And the game takes place in 10th century. She comes from a Celtic background, Scotland to be precise. The island's called Orkney, which are very sort of on far north of Scotland, looking towards the North Pole, and she experiences lots of traumas and lots of misfortunes, and her lover gets killed, and she blames the characters who live in Iceland for that, and therefore she then decides to travel to the foreign lands in order to revenge, first of all, her loved one, and secondly, to resolve the problems that she has from within. In the sequel, we are told she is not going to be as insular. There won't be as much time spent on the confronting your own past, but more, it'll be 2 ways. On one hand, she's doing this. On the other, to a greater degree, she is also confronting the enemies, and she is engaging with many more characters in the sequel compared to the original game. So the game's out. It's for you to either preload or download, or indeed try it. You can do it on cloud, you can do it through your console, you can do it on your PC. All of that goes through Xbox. It's not as yet accessible on PlayStation or standard standalone PCs. And I guess you could buy it and then play it on your PC. But all of that is linked and tied in with what Xbox is offering. And so let's see, first of all, what reviews have come in. And I have seen earlier, let me just dig this up, I've had some tables indicating that the reviews were very, very positive, and they were coming from all sorts of ends. So let me just see very quickly. Principally, what we have seen is that the reviews were all between 8 and 10, if you're looking at, like 10 out of 10. So it's been very, very, very positive. And I picked up a review here from IGN, the first one to be released very early. And I'm not sure I'm not getting the numbers now, just bear with me. Not sure what the reason is. I pasted it here and I cannot see it at the moment. So we just migrate to the first big review that indeed came from IGN. And the ultimate result is 8 out of 10. So let's see what IGN, you'll be familiar with International Games Network and their reviews, and let me see what they said as to why they thought this game was so good. So they said we have a review by Tristan Ogilvy, and that's come out at 9 o'clock AM today. And he says, watching Senua emerge from a shipwreck onto the shoreline, bruised, bloodied and struggling, the breed immediately drags us back into the depths of desperation and despair of Senua's saga. So Hellblade 2 Psychosis, and that is what is affecting the lead character right from the beginning. And he says, well, what follows is a supremely taught 6-hour tour. So it's a 6-hour game, so it's very short, across the human realm of Midgard that is conveyed through staggeringly vivid action sequences, stunning Nordic-inspired locations, and intense encounters with towering terrors, intimidating enough to make a Viking mess their furs. That's really beautifully written. That's really applaud really the semantics of the writer. And they said that Hellblade 2 is giving us another very satisfying but very brutal and enthralling, consistently enthralling heroine's journey. Even if it's streamlined, sword fighting favors cinematic spectacle over substantial gameplay depth. So basically what he's trying to say is you have a lot more of that fighting compared to the first game, less walking. And I guess there isn't that much of a story in there, but it's very much connected to her struggles and her way to which she's engaging the enemies and the hostile terrain. So it's been 7 years since we've seen the first game, and the events here, the sequel, take place very shortly after the original's vengeful highway to Helheim. You'll remember that Helheim, if you played the first game, was the land of gods, and the darkness, the evil characters were out there, and Hell was the major enemy of Senua's, and Hell's spell is now feeling empowered by her psychosis rather than encumbered with it. And they said after the Icelandic slave ship she stows away is wrecked during a severe storm, then she survives, and then she has huge doubts which will be kind of re-emerging to clash with her own stoic sense of justice, and then setting her down another gripping and tortured path towards battling both of her own inner demons and the bloodthirsty monsters which are roaming Midgard as they take human and mythical forms. So that's very similar to the original game. You have characters that originally look like a human and they turn into some sort of vengeful beast, and you need to really make sure that your skills and your abilities when it comes to head-on collisions are up to scratch, and that you can indeed master your moves in order to defeat them. So he says here that she will be joined along by a number of human companions, a slave master, then you have a settler whom she's going to be saving from a sacrificial altar, and some other characters, and he feels that none of these supporting characters are given enough screen time to really kind of develop much of a personality beyond the surface. But I think really the creators of the game want you to be always within Senua. Everything else that she's facing is secondary because it's a projection of her own internal world, you know. So it is like walking through psychosis, even if they say that this is a story based on a character in 10th century, but still for me it's like walking through never-ending nightmare, and that itself is a very, very terrifying experience. So let me just see, it's a battle-scarred Senua herself who is the real star, and we really kind of pay attention to her more than to anything else. And again, she's portrayed wonderfully by Melina Jurgens, who is returning from the first game, but now in a near photorealistic form. So this game is very much like a interactive movie doesn't have much difference between what you see on the screen and how this will look in real life. It's very, very close to real life, so ultra realistic. And they also said that she has a truly courageous and compassionate presence, and the writer of the article just bought into the determination to battle through the fear and self-loathing from the moments when she's literally paralyzed by the anxiety to the situations where she is being led by kind of gut-wrenching, blood-boiling rage. And again, you go through dark and disturbing places, and the sequel's environments have been painted from a broader color palette than the mostly bleak backdrops of the original. So there's a greater emphasis on the diversity in here, and you still have to be always on your toes because the enemies are going to pop up from any kind of corner. And they also said that Hellblade is running at 30 frames per second on Series X, but the visual design is so incredible that you will not even notice. And they also said that playing with headphones on is an absolute must. And I said that earlier in my podcast, not just today, but literally throughout the last week. This is a game that has got to be played with headphones, and if you are to be inside of Senua's head, you will get that experience if you're doing so. You hear all these voices, some are whispering, some are shouting, some are talking, some are 3 or 4 voices that keep interacting at all times, and you will not get that experience if you're watching it on your standard television set. So that's a big difference. Don't forget, if you're doing that with your headphones on, make sure you're not suffering from weak nerves, because it is very, very frightening, and you're entering a mind that's highly disturbed. And I've not seen any other portrayal of mental illness which was as realistic and as real, which obviously makes it to be particularly good in here. But entering a disturbed mind is not an easy ride, remember that, and it is a very, very terrifying experience. Make sure you do not get affected by that experience very badly afterwards when you move away from the game. Just try to keep a distance, but remember that what you're watching is the way this actually feels like to somebody who is seriously ill. So they said they have, again, really incredible visuals and terrific binaural audio design, and when you listen to it on headphones, you have the fantastic effect of, first of all, being immersed in a mind, and secondly, with fighting sequences, every single noise is being heard. It's very sharp and crystal clear, and they're also making it really quite easy for you to hear what these supporting characters are saying and doing, in addition to Senua. So in the sequel, it appears that she's fighting many more human warriors, so they're not really as demonic as what you were seeing in the first game. And I guess therefore maybe it is bringing it back to a certain level of reality, whilst the first one felt almost continuously as a projection of an undisturbed mind, at least for me. And all these characters, particularly towards the end, were almost like the demons she had to fight off in order to survive from within. And they said that enemy encounters can be brought to a viciously abrupt end. Well, that was the case in the first game as well for me. So you have lots of descriptions in here of these fight sequences, and there are lots of ferocious fights, and there will be kind of, you'll be remarkably fluid in your fight every single time before you make sure that the other character is gone. And they also said that they really worked quite hard in order to enhance some of the action that you are being experienced, that you're experiencing here in the game compared to the original game. And 6-hour run is just that seems to be very brief, I have to say. And I'm not sure whether 6-hour run is on the easiest difficulty level or what, but surely, as we played the original game, we know that even if it was 3 hours, there will be you'll face many obstacles, and therefore the game will be extended for a lot longer. So it's just 6-hour run would be like a speed run, like a massive big fast walkthrough where you destroyed and killed everyone on the spot. But I don't think this is likely for anyone who's entering the game. And so the overall verdict here is Score 9, and I beg your pardon, that is basically the Score 9 was given to the first game, and we'll compare in a moment with the sequel. So for the first one, they said Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is a masterclass of atmosphere, storytelling, and the perfect marriage of mechanical and conceptual design. While there are moments that feel shoehorned in to remind us that we are playing a video game, the care and attention that Ninja Theory has clearly poured into Senua and the story has created something truly amazing. And this game is a title that everyone should play, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to have lived inside the mind of Senua, however briefly. I'd say just for myself that what he missed out here in this brief reflection on the game experience is that hardcore experience of mental illness, and that needs to be highlighted because this is what the game's about, and also how frightening that can be to people who are playing the game. I think a lot of the people who are reviewing are bypassing the fact that this is a truly, doesn't belong to horror genre, but it's truly horrifying because you're being tortured by these voices and nasty thoughts that keep attacking you at all times, irrespective of where you are and what you do. And that's exactly how it works in real life. And that's the greatest strength of the game, but at the same time, it's one of those most frightening aspects of the gameplay, and it's not properly highlighted, I've got to admit. And so let's see what the final verdict is. They're giving us a big rundown on ins and outs of various activities, but I want to read through this because it would spoil the game for you. You do not want to have a spoiler. And we have here a verdict. So let me just give you the verdict. It gives us 8 points out of 10, right? Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 delivers a spellbinding adventure packed with cinematic spectacle and story surprises that maintains a surging sense of forward momentum and never wastes a second of its slender runtime. Its combat manages to feel consistently intimidating and immediate despite its mechanical simplicity, and its perspective-based puzzles regularly scratch cerebral itches even though they largely rehash or rework concepts from the previous story. A journey as brutal as it is beautiful, delivered with hardware-pushing visuals and persistently absorbing audio, Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 is another Viking-worthy feast for the senses that meets the high bar set by its predecessor, even if it never really manages to clear it. Well, this is beautifully written, but I think he needs to really emphasize the backbone of all that we are watching, and that is the ultra realism of mental illness. And there's no word said about mental illness here in the review. So from my point of view, that is highly disappointing. This is a perfect game for anyone who fights for mental health to be streamed and discussed, because that is something that everyone who's gone through a patch of psychosis or any form of mental disturbance, be it organic or non-organic, or maybe other reasons for this. People can suffer from psychosis if they're catching certain viruses, like for instance COVID virus could have caused this during the long COVID phase, or indeed during the delirium if somebody was having huge pneumonia, and you had that with encephalitis or meningitis, where your brain core would get inflamed and it would produce all kinds of abnormal experiences. So anyone who's gone through that will be indeed delighted to see that somebody has been brave enough, and that's the Ninja Theory Studio, to present that in its true format. Unlike what we see on TV and in films, where it's generally turned into either caricature or grotesque brutality. And I absolutely oppose this. It's ridiculous that we are being fed that type of vision of what appears to be one of the most difficult, most mysterious aspects of humanity. We don't really know as to why certain people become so mentally ill, despite all the knowledge and exploration and, the empirical data and the research and the work invested in the findings of as to why all of that is happening. Still, this remains a deep mystery, and therefore I think it needs to be tackled with greater wisdom and sensitivity. So two factors which are critical. I don't like watching films where everyone who appears to be brutal is associated with some form of mental illness. That's just complete nonsense. It's not the way it is. It is completely wrong. And this game is giving you a perfect picture of, first of all, what you need to be doing in order to survive such voices, and then secondly, how the voices do not have to be always working to detriment. If you conquer the ability to face up to them, and if you use them for, in this instance, your fighting skills, but in real life, if you use them in order to enhance your creativity, for instance, with creative works, writing, painting, music making, dance, theatre, films, you name it, acting, then you are definitely going to be taking the upper hand and you will remain in control. So loads of thoughts that come out from the gameplay, particularly for somebody like myself who had spent a lot of time in psychiatric services as a senior professional, and I've seen everything, you could say, on the inside out. But this game brought in some other perspective. It really kind of triggered off the viewpoint to which the developer says, well, we are not afraid to present to the world what this is really like. I'll give you an example, something completely unrelated. You watch films which are linked to wars, right? And the vast majority of them will have some sort of political undertones that pursue a particular viewpoint. If you want to see what war's like, watch a documentary which is made in a military field hospital. That is what war's like, right? And it's terrifying. It's utterly grotesque. It's awful. And anyone watching the footage, documentary from military field hospital will tell you, my God, is this what we are doing? Well, actually, yeah, that's exactly what war's like. What I'm trying to say is that the perspective which you're getting from feature films and, the projects made in film studios as a feature film, in the format of a feature film, they will be frequently divorced from the actual meaning of the conflict and the divorce from the brutality of it all, the ultimate result where people come back in pieces and people die and or suffer terrible grotesque injuries which will plague them for the rest of their lives if they carry on living. And I think mental illness comes in similar sort of category. There's a huge amount of prejudice attached to it, and there is fear, which is natural. If somebody's behaving in a way which is uncontrollable, other people get scared, and we need to have a greater wisdom and a lot more sensitivity applied to the process to which the illness, its signs and symptoms, manifestations, and the overall effects on the environment are being presented. There needs to be greater wisdom applied. What we do see in films, and particularly on TV, is frequently grotesque, and it's incredibly misleading. I think this game is giving us exactly the opposite. It's giving us a guidance into the right direction. So, to summarize, I talked a lot about Hellblade today, and in my last few sessions, I absolutely look forward to the moment where I'll be doing it tonight. Very excited, very much look forward to. As it is a shortish game, they said 6 hours run, but I'm quite certain I'll play it probably for 30, as I'm not that skilled in combat and I'm not that fast like some of the other community members. So all the other reviews I've seen from Games Radar, from Eurogamer, from Games Rant, GameSpot, the list just goes on, the vast majority was 8.5 to 9 to 10 out of 10. So it's from 8.5 to 10, generally very, very stellar reviews. The game's been very well received, and we all look forward to playing it tonight. So hopefully everyone downloaded it, and just want to say to anyone who's entering, I do object that IGN talks about the fighting and they're not talking about mental illness, and just bypassing the most important parts of the gameplay. I listened to the crew yesterday, people who created the game, and they said we really want people to be fully immersed so they feel what she feels and they survive in the same way as she would the suffering and the pain which had been experienced, and indeed successfully managing to defeat all the enemies, internal and external. So I think that's certainly a journey that I want to be doing, and I really look forward to that. And I preload or download or make sure that indeed you are having the game on your console. Right, we'll now progress to what we said earlier we would do, and that's This Week in Destiny, and that's all related to the week which is just about to be ending today, and that's regrettable. I like presenting everything in advance, but I got the information fairly late, so there we are. And the Bungie are telling us that we are really coming very close to the Final Shape release. That's going to be on is the 4th of June. And don't forget, all the expansions at the moment, even if you don't have them, you can play free of charge on all platforms across the board. So you completed your Destiny expansions and your campaign on Xbox, you can just migrate to PC, laptop, or indeed your Sony PlayStation. You can do everything there, free of charge. All of that will be sunsetted on the 4th as the new expansion is released. So from the Witness to the Dread to Prismatic to exotic class items, there are so many things that we all can be greatly excited about. And in the last report, which I received on Friday, we have a lot more to share with you and some system updates and some niceties and all. So the topics for this week, the week which is ending today, is weapons tuning recap, then building your arsenal shorts, enhanced perk updates, memento changes, reduced fragment costs at Ikora in the Final Shape. That's quite good. New boss profile for the Pantheon, so new boss has been drafted in. 0-hour exotic mission, which is now live. That's the 3rd exotic mission of the current event. And then you have Metoro webcomic feature, and that's very good because I have seen Gears of War and Halo comic strips, and I've not come across Destiny, must admit. They will be integrating the webcomics feature, I think, similar to what we've seen in Apex, and that's been hugely successful. People grinding in order to get the full graphic novel, with all the pages, and trying to think whether we kept them in Apex or they disappeared as the event ended. Anyway, if you collected all the pages, you could just simply take photographs of them or screenshots and keep them forever, and you have them on your Instagram or your laptop. The last one is Destiny 2 Content Vault updates. So weapons tuning recap. They talked about their plans for weapons tuning in the Final Shape. So that is a change to what we had before, and that will be also introducing some weapon mod specs, weapon balancing, some perk updates, and for more details, they have everything written in the article called Developer Insight Weapons Tuning Preview Blog. I talked about that during the last few weeks, so if you were not with us, you can just simply go to Bungie, go to the news and access the blog, and all of that's written in there. It's quite in-depth if you are really one of those weapons nerds that really want to know everything about every single piece. And then presenting this week a selection of those that are going to be coming to us in the Final Shape. So we're getting a first look at some of the exotic weapons and armor. You have quite a selection in there. So you have Microcosm. Then you have, Microcosm is a heavy ammunition trace rifle. Looks really amazing, I have to say. The amount of time they spent on designing those pieces has just been probably voluminous, and they look so beautifully designed, so you really want to have that. And I've heard sometimes from our friends on Reddit that they will be creating their own pieces, so they'll be taking photographs or looking at the videos and then creating, mastering, a bit like we cosplay, their own stuff. And I have seen some people who, I guess, they produce some simpler weapons, like for instance the swords. They're easier to design than, for instance, this one. This is very complicated, Microcosm. I mean, it would take them quite a bit of time to produce something of the similar nature. The weapon we heard about last week is Hostov Auto Rifle, and that will be given to us as an exotic. You remember that in order to improve the rifle in the first game, we were to be collecting parts for various patrols and activities, and in this one, in the sequel, we are going to be getting it through an exotic quest. Then we have Mateidoxia. That sounds really weird. Mateidoxia sounds Greek. Warlock exotic chest armor. So that's coming our way. Just to illuminate you a bit more, if you're interested what these pieces look like, just go to my Twitter and access This Week in Destiny posting, which I have on my Twitter. Hit that follow button as well, don't forget. And you have also on the posting these videos, and each one of the videos is giving you a very good picture what this is going to look like. I have to say they excelled with the number of developer diaries and videos in this instance, a lot better compared to what we had in the past, which indicates some degree of anxiety about the community reaction in response to Lightfall and everything that's been happening during the last sort of 18 months. And they really want to please as many people as possible and coerce newcomers to come in. So, we need to see whether it will work, the strategy. And so far, the strategy has been good, and the Into Light event has been given very good results. And I think we are getting a very good picture on what is to follow through an activity that is thoroughly enjoyable and probably some of the best ever created in this Bungie's universe. So we have Gifted Conviction, that's Hunter Exotic Chest Armor. And don't forget, each one of these looks beautiful, but you really have to pay attention to the mods and what you are going to be using in there in order to modify. Then you have Hazardous Propulsion, that's for the Titan, that's another chest piece, looking also absolutely awesome. Well, that's just a small glimpse of what is to follow with weapons and armor. Then they said during the Lightfall year, we had a taste of weapon enhancement with the raid adept weapons such as the ones which you picked up from Root of Nightmares and Crotus Ends. So in the next expansion, you'll see that this system has undergone some upgrades and making enhancing your weapons easier, and also allowing us to comfortably expand the system to include many more weapons. So there's a recap in here on how this is going to be working. So say, weapon enhancement allows the weapon to be upgraded to receive enhanced traits. So a weapon level and a memento socket. So to upgrade your weapon, you can navigate to the inspection screen and then insert the enhancement tier mod for standard currencies. So that's raid adept weapons will continue to use Spoils of Conquest. And that will be, you're familiar with the way it worked. It's just going to be a different type of system. You'll have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and you'll be leveling up your weapon with its power. Very good idea. I think it makes really the lengthy grinds a lot more enjoyable, and it makes the activity more meaningful. And even if you're not getting constantly some of that new content, grinding for these enhancements will be okay, provided that it works, and provided you're getting them with ease rather than need to hundreds of grinds and then eventually getting something. So you have 3 levels of enhancement: tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3, right? So for tier 1, that tier will be replacing a masterwork, and then it will give the weapon with an enhanced intrinsic that matches the stat of your old masterwork, providing weapon level, a date when you first enhance the weapon, and a memento socket. And then for the raid adepts, since these weapons have a base crafted version, Bungie really want the adept versions to feel like a meaningful upgrade. I agree with that. And these weapons can visit the relic on Mars to adjust their first 2 columns. That's basically barrels and magazines, and that will be in similar fashion to how crafted weapons can augment these per columns. So that's quite good. That's really a major enhancement, I guess. Instead of just enhancing armor with mods, now we are going to be doing it on every single level in Destiny. All weapons and everything that comes together with the next expansion will be craftable and enhanceable. So for the tier 2, you'll need to be level 11, so you'll have to be grinding, you have to be using the weapon in action, and it's the best way of doing it if you go to endgame activities, like dungeons and raids or battlegrounds. So if you go to what we have presently there with what is it called, Onslaught, and then you'll be leveling up faster as the weapon is being used consistently in order to eliminate as many enemies as possible. And for the tier 2, if you are inserting the mods, then the left column will automatically be upgraded to the enhanced perks, and if you have multiple perks, this will update all traits in the column. That's sounding really good. And in this instance, you will not need to go to Mars to upgrade these traits. And then you have level 3. So that's weapon level 17 requirement. I think my glaive is almost 47 or 49 now, so I'm not doing badly. Once the player applies this mod to the right column weapon, trait perks will automatically be updated to be enhanced. It's automated. Like the left column, this will upgrade all of the traits present and it will not require any visits to Mars. So visiting Mars is going to be just for level 1 or the tier 1. Well, it's looking good. I think I like the idea, and I like the idea of having your favorite weapon and then polishing it off with additional abilities. I'm a creature of habits, you know, I just generally resort to the same gear and the same loadouts for certain activities, and I'm quite certain it's the case for many people. They really wanted to diversify that a little while back, but they've given up on it. In any case, if you have your favorite loadout, you do your streams, you replay with other mates, you may want to throw in some other items, some other weapons, just for the fun of it all, you know, to have fun with others, and make yourself less or more powerful, and you can grind in order to enhance the weapons. So definitely ensuring consistent gameplay and some interest, which people will be drawn to do different things. It must have been very, very hard to be creating all these mods and, you know, tiers and all sorts everywhere. And they said that also they received some feedback indicating that weapons should have more avenues to acquire enhanced traits. So in the final shape, all new weapons will either be craftable, so no weapon will be just to be easily discarded. Obviously, if you have triples and doubles, you will get rid of them, but or have access to weapon enhancement. So either they'll be craftable or you will be able to enhance them. In addition, weapons that remain active drops in the following activities will be eligible for enhancement. So for instance, the activities like Vow the Disciple Raid Adepts, Guardian Games, King's Fall Raid Adepts, Gambit, Competitive Crucible, all of them, Trials of Osiris, Crucible, Iron Banner, Vanguard, Ops, Nightfall's Prophecy, Dungeons. So these activities that require a bit more skill, and some of them come the category of the endgame, and therefore you will be getting all of that. The weapons and the loot you're collecting are going to be of that kind as you complete these activities. Right, so mementos in the final shape. There is a lot of feedback on weapon mementos, and quite a few of them were released through the seasons, so they will be applying a few changes, and that will be primarily linked to how you store mementos and how you can be able to apply them to your weapons. So, crafted and enhanced weapons will no longer need to visit the relic on Mars to apply them. You can apply the memento of their choosing directly into the weapon inspection screen, which is good. I mean, it reminds me of Destiny 1 and not being able to delete items at your postmasters. It's just like an unnecessary grind, and many items that need to be brought into the inventory and then either stashed or deleted. You know, it just makes it easier, more streamlined. So they'll memento stack caps limits is raised from 1 to 3, and then mementos will no longer be stored inside the player's consumables. So when the next expansion launches, they will be under consumables showed as faded, and once the faded memento is dismantled, you'll see +1 memento added in the weapon inspection screen as your virtual currency. So players have figured out how to get around the original memento stack size limits. This will allow you to dismantle all of those mementos safely, and even you temporarily go over the intended stack limit to 3. Holding 3 or more of a particular memento, it will not drop again until you spend your mementos to be under the stack size limit of 3. Then let me see what we've got there. Reduce fragment costs at their core in the final shape. So subclass fragments are generally expensive, but they want to be making those vital build crafting elements more accessible, so they'll be reducing it, like the price from 25,000 glimmer to 10,000, etc, etc. And then another week and your tasks become more difficult. Rulk, Disciple of the Witness, has joined the Pantheon. So he is that terrible, terrible beast that you need to be defeating. And you probably already tried some of that. 0-hour exotic mission is live. So that's the mission that would have given us, that would have come our way last week. And you can find it in the Into the Light node in the Director. And then once you completed it, you'll be getting an exotic pulse rifle, which is called Outbreak Perfected. They're also asking everyone to be doing screenshots and then sharing the favorite moments with TR3VR. And so that's videos, memes, screenshots, and maybe I'll contribute as well. I've created quite a few clips and lots of screenshots of our activities. And then they're bringing in webcomics. So the Japanese webcomic artist Meteoro has gone to Destiny 2. And then they're asking us to double check this. So you have, following the golden age of humans, some really scary folks are invading. Will we, the chosen light bearers, be able to drive them away? This is Meteoro's interpretation. So you have like a small comic strip there. It's like a guide. Without me going through it, it's all displayed on This Week in Destiny, and that's quite good. I think it'd be quite good to have pages collected in the course of the game as well, so you can really collect them and have them as something which is part and parcel of our gameplay. Alright, so that's probably all that we have from Bungie, and just to conclude this session, we'll just have a look at some other daily news which we received. And as I've said, there's been a lot of news floating. The big news coming from Bethesda was Starfield related. They introduced this new update and generally has been very, very well received. You can now watch Starfield. I think is it 60? They increased the frame rate, I know, and then you get the new layout as well as the newly crafted maps, which are much better. Easier for people to orientate themselves as they venture out into different planets and galaxies. So that's good. I wanted to try it a couple of days ago, but as I said, my hard disk is full of preloads and big games, and therefore I had to do it on the cloud, but the cloud was syncing so slowly because it's a massive big game, and you know, I had to give it a miss, but definitely one of my top priorities this week. 7 years ago today, Destiny 2 gameplay was revealed, so it was 2 days ago, and we remember how we watched the showcase which was indicating this. Told you already about this very negative feedback for Assassin's Creed Shadows, and there's a big article here on Push Square indicating as to why that is. I read it, I don't agree with any of it. I think it's just basically rigged from within. It is bots and all other kinds of entities trying to ruin the series. I don't buy any of it, and the best indicator on what's happening is the sales, and ever since the trailer was launched, the sales are skyrocketing, so that's a very good sign. We've heard, well, news that really elated me. I was very happy to receive them from IGN. Crystal Dynamics, the developer of Tomb Raider, has now decided to kind of redesign Lara Croft somewhat, and we have seen the new Lara, right? And that's been very, very good. She looks really as beautiful as always. And if you're interested what she's like, just simply go to the postings on my Twitter. That was reported by Polygon. And they offered the remastered collection of the first 3 games on February the 13th. And I remember someone told me that they were also able to get these. I'm not sure whether they're remastered though. The Survivor Trilogy by Epic for free, offered for free. So I think it's a no-brainer. You were to download them and keep them and play them, of course. And I'm gutted to have missed that because I don't play games on PC at the moment frequently. I just don't really pay attention to Epic every single week, and every single week you get like a game which is offered free of charge, and it's always the best to claim anything that comes your way. I need to integrate that better, I think, with my Android in order to claim it remotely every single week. I'm not sure whether I can, as Epic is a platform similar to Steam that's offering everything for PCs. And so, you know, we have some pictures indicating what she's going to look like. And I don't really see much difference, to be honest with you. Perhaps if I consider this concept art, she looks a bit more substantial. Maybe that's just my assumption, not sure. But pretty much the same old Lara from what I can see. And maybe different outfits, you know. Some may be very revealing, the other ones, a bit like aviator suits or different ones as you had in the game I'm presently entertained with. The original, well, it's not original, the 2013 Tomb Raider. So lots of reviews coming in and description, well, it's not reviews, actually descriptions of Hellblade. And I told you all about the game already. We have Jeff Keighley coming in and asking us to contribute for the Summer Game Festival. And he's asking whether we as the streamers want to be coming in and co-streaming on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, or any other platform. If you want to do that, you need to register, and therefore you will be able to stream that content once it's been done live through your channel. So very important. I actually look into this. I really want to see whether some of the big events I could really do also on my channel. I have not done any of these in the past, and I'm very curious to see how this works. So definitely at the very top of my list. And then we've seen then that in view of this update and very positive reviews, Starfield had been beefing up on the number of returnees, people coming back to the game, and they said that's gone up by 72%. So that's very, very good news. But you know, it's usually the case when you have something new introduced, a massive big AAA blockbuster, people come in, have a look, spend a few weeks on that, and then migrate, and that's just the way it is for the vast majority of the games. It's a very big problem for major developers to keep somebody entertained with one title for a very, very long period of time, as we are having so many titles and games offered through a variety of different platforms. It's very different compared to the old days. It's 20 years ago, you go to a shop, purchase one AAA blockbuster, you played days on end, you'd be just on that title continuously for months, for years. You know, but today we live in a different era, and it's curiosity. I think the streaming platforms sometimes are offering us so much choice, and you know, we'll want to try the titles that keep coming, and therefore we will be extracted from one of those which appears to be whatever requiring the greatest interest. Such is life. And then we've heard from Gunfire Games. They're really, really happy with the reviews they received on Game Rant. And they said that the game was the ultimate co-op experience and co-op Souls-like games. So, you know, really, really happy, very grateful to Game Rant for providing that type of description. We've heard from Larry Hribb, the former Major Nelson, I should say the former Xbox icon, who had departed from the company a few months ago, and he said that he wants to be playing together with the rest of us today, Hellblade 2, and he's asking us to provide him with some comments and views and add this to your list of things to play this week if you've not preloaded. I agree, Larry. I think I preloaded and I will be doing it today. And we've heard also from Microsoft that in view of the success that Ninja Theory had, they already had been given a green light for another title, which they are going to be working on. And then, like I said at the beginning of this session, a lot of talk today on IGN and all these other platforms about non-closure of Ninja Theory, and you just wonder, where on earth did you get the information from? I mean, you should really praise the fact that a new title has been okayed for development, and then the money's coming in to Ninja Theory to work on it straight away as they completed Hellblade sequel. Instead of just inventing such nonsense, it's just crazy. I mean, really, it is ridiculous to be fomenting such negativity and throwing it into the arena where other people, you know, the way they do it today, copy and paste and throw it to TikTok, throw it to YouTube. It's nonsense. It's got no substance whatsoever. I've seen no indication anywhere that there was any threat to Ninja Theory. None. And where do they get this information from? I mean, you know, they probably would spread lies about everyone in the public sphere if that was made possible, just in order to attract interest. As you've seen sometimes on Facebook, some, you know, totally anonymous individuals writing on some actors and musicians and indicating something scandalous, which is completely invented, and everybody wants to go there to find out what's going on. And I think such mass manipulation of media would need to come under special judiciary section. You know, it needs to be seriously clamped down upon. There's a huge danger when people are allowed to be doing this, as they're misleading those who are not double checking the facts. Therefore, I just read what comes from the developers, and I'm not interested in what some online hub or entity is likely to be saying. I really want to make sure, like for instance the story about Call of Duty, the next one. I mean, Sarah Bond did say a few things which indicated perhaps this was going to be their redacted show, but you know, we don't know, and there's the hype is hugely built about this title needing to be there. But what happens if they introduce Avowed or some other title? There will be backlash. You know, it's not a good idea to do that. That's certainly my opinion. Then we have also from Xbox ANZ indicating that if you are subscribing to them and if you are retweeting, they will give you a very nice Xbox Series X wireless controller, which indeed belongs to Senua. It's the controller Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, so very, very nice one. And let me see, I told you all about Dom Matthews, what he said yesterday. I guess that probably will be the very best way through which we can conclude today's Bulletin of News. Dom Matthews had become the studio head, and he also had been sharing the director's responsibility for Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 after the original director departed. So he gave us a message yesterday, it was last night, saying, hi everyone, as we sit on the eve of the release of Senua's Saga, which has been released today, wanted to thank you, our fans, on behalf of everyone here at Ninja Theory. We see you and we hear you when you give us such love and support, and when you tell us how much Senua means to you, when you tell us how much you're looking forward to the game, and how much faith you have in us to continue Senua's story in a way that does justice to the connection so many of you have to her and to Hellblade. Absolutely. I mean, I was the supporter of the game from day one, and it's just coming from heart, you know. It's honest and truthful, and we love the game, we love the character, and when you have, I think she's a bit like Ingrid Bergman. I remember watching Ingrid Bergman when I was a child a few times, and I thought the combination of that inner turmoil and suffering, and then her strength, you know, the way she sort of battles through in Casablanca or in Notorious, you know, or in Spellbound, you know, it's just like really, you identify with the pain and the struggles, which is the greatest strength. Therefore, she became such a huge actress, loved still and cherished by so many today after so many years have gone by since the passing. And you know, it's that vulnerability that draws you in, and I think Senua does have that. So to carry on, from the very beginning of Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, we have had you, the gamers, in mind, and I truly hope that when you play the second chapter of Senua's story, you will find that familiar connection once again, and that so many more people will find a way to Senua and her world as well. Making video games is very difficult. Much like Senua, we as a team have been guided by conviction to achieve our quest to make a game that sinks deep into Senua's world, and to take you on a journey that leaves you thinking and feeling. So that's critical. You see, that is the method which I applied with my patients and clinical cases that I worked with for many years, when they had to be made to think and to feel, and conceptualize and rationalize. And if you feel something painful, try to think about it. Try to throw in some thoughts. If you have very nasty thoughts, then try to feel very positive. Try to experience something on the emotional side, which is not based on the cognitive reasoning, i.e. the thoughts or the words. It's the balance between the two which is critical. And he says, I want you to think, to feel. It's the backbone of any form of therapeutic involvement with anyone who's experiencing emotional trauma. It's absolutely fantastic. And so he really did hit the nail on the head with this, for me at least, and I'm sure for many other professionals as well. And for the people who suffered from illness, you know. So he says, I believe we have achieved our quest, and I hope you will agree. I'm very proud of the game, very proud of our team, and very proud of you, our fans, who have supported us on this magical journey. Thank you, Dom Matthews, studio head. So it's wonderful, Dom. Thank you for your dedication, and most importantly, thank you for your bravery. You're brave to have created such saga, working on the second installment already within such short period of time, and giving the world what was desperately needed. You know, the entertainment industry now has got a picture of what it's like to be suffering from serious mental disturbance in a way which is realistic. It's, you know, close to bone. It's just the way it is. And that is what makes the world of difference. And that is critical. So thank you for your bravery. Thank you for your persistence, for the passion. We love your game. And we'll always be there for you. We are going to be supporting the studio and the new titles 100%. Alright, my friends, I talked quite a lot today. We've had a lot to get through. Hope you guys enjoyed everything I said, and indeed, certainly hoping that you will be joining us on the journey of Senua's. Hopefully you downloaded the game already. Hopefully you are going to be jumping on the game ASAP as soon as practicable, and therefore we are going to be able to share some of our thoughts and feelings here, you know, on this forum live, where we are to talk about how the title and the character have been experienced. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here with us today. Thank you, most importantly, for supporting my charitable fundraiser in here, which is supporting the Mind Charity, a charity that works with people who are experiencing mental health problems. Keep it coming with your follows, with your likes, with your comments and views, with your shares, to which you're spreading the news about the charity and the campaign. And just keep them coming. Make sure that you donate if you can. If not, just share and make sure that your colleagues, friends, relatives get to know more about the charity. Any form of assistance is greatly appreciated by everyone. And that includes myself, the charity, and most importantly, the service users. So on that note, I shall wish you all a very, very good night. And I shall all look forward to seeing you tomorrow when we return back with another bulletin of video gaming news. Take care, have a good night, and enjoy Senua.